Very good afternoon, everyone. Charles here. Frgnt Daily Chart Analysis here on TradingView. Wednesday, the 25th of March, 2026. Just approaching 25 minutes to 8 here in Milan, pre-London Open chart analysis. So, I foresee a potentially busy day in the markets today. However, we'll start on the DXY and we'll gauge to see if that appetite is legitimate. So at the moment on the DXY, it's still unchanged, to be quite honest. We rejected that weekly 50 MA towards the upside last week. We've closed above it, so I'm expecting continued longs or continued bullish pressure coming out of the DXY. So that's the full stop. With that said, on the daily time frame, we're down towards that daily order block just here in the bottom right hand corner, supported long via that daily 50 MA as well. And once that daily order block is refined, we can see an area in the market on the 4-hour time frame, bottom left hand chart, where potentially price could well pull down to. And on the 15-minute time frame, let me just adjust my alert down, because like I mentioned yesterday, the DXY is the catalyst. Therefore, when the DXY moves, I need to know when it's moving. And then I can hop over to my crosspair in order to find that correlation and confirmation, I should say, also, before taking a position on a crosspair. So at the moment, the DXY, on the 4-hour time frame, nothing too interesting, to be honest. And I've just put a box around it just to highlight that we haven't made any real significant highs and no real significant lows. So I can already identify that on the DXY, considering that the 4-hour time, the 4-hour 50 EMA is keeping price towards the downside. However, we've got the daily 50 EMA wanting to push price to the upside. We can see a bit of hold up on pressure, and there's a little bit of indecision there at the moment. So what can we do in that respect? Well, to be honest, if I'm waiting for a short on the crosspair on the 15-minute chart, what I'm expecting to see is price want to gravitate to one of these 15-minute order blocks. I hope this one here, which you can see my alert, is slightly above that 15-minute order block. Why? Well, because at the moment I can see that price has made its first high from this area of recent price action. So ordinarily after that high, I'm expecting price to sort of make that higher low before that higher high continuation. The only issue that we do have, as I've mentioned, is we are currently below that 4-hour 50 EMA. And if I look at the 4-hour time frame on the bottom left-hand chart, I can quite clearly see price making lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, potentially that lower high into this 4-hour 50 EMA before driving price down. If price is driven down, I wouldn't mind it, because I have much better areas in terms of taking a long position on the DXY from absolutely as low as possible. And that for me has been pretty much a good key for me, as I was used to or previously trading a lot of limit orders and simply getting on with my day, trading from the highs and the lows of the markets and not really thinking about the position at all. So as I can see price on that downtrend on the 4-hour, I expect price to want to be driven down into that daily 50 MA before we get that true rejection towards the upside. That then increases the range back up to the 4-hour 50 MA that is currently working against us. And then hopefully once we get that 4-hour candle closure above that 4-hour 50 MA, we'll be in for continued bullish continued bullish pressure and long positions for the remainder of the week. So we just need to upset that 4-hour time frame at the moment. Until we have that, it's a little bit of a standstill on the DXY for now. But bear that in mind, and we'll go through the crosspairs where we have some nice alignments, some pretty nice setups being created at this time. But nevertheless, if the DXY doesn't move, we're not going to have any confirmation to actually look to execute those positions on the crosspair. So let's take a look first and foremost. I should have really put these flags in order, but I was a bit lazy today. So let's firstly take a look at EG. We had a position on that yesterday, closed it out at just under 1 to 3, I believe, and now finally we've had that full closure above that 4-hour 50 MA. So I'd hate to say it, but it looks like potentially missed the party for continued long positions on the pullback. Nevertheless, you can absolutely understand why we'd be expecting it. Again, if I draw this out its most basic format, we've made the low, if you would like to call that a lower high, and we've failed to make a lower low, and then off we've gone, we've broken that 4-hour 50 MA, we've created our first high above that 4-hour 50 MA and the first high within the trend, and after a high, of course, higher low, and it now looks as if we're making that higher high continuation. So it's a bit of a shame, but nevertheless, if price can do whatever it likes. If it wants to come back down to these areas here, then absolutely I'll be in the market for a very aggressive long position, as we're trading alongside that weekly 50 MA, alongside the 4-hour 50 MA, hopefully by the time price gets down there as well. And then on the 50-minute time frame, you can see just by that zoomed out outcome, one line would always do it, as I'm beginning to recognize, and it's simply that on the 15-minute time frame. So very much so bullish on the intraday perspective, so I'm happy about that. So if you were to ask me longs or shorts, I'd much prefer taking a long position on EG. However, well, you have no idea what can happen in these markets these days. If price is driven down to those lows, then I'll be in for some confirmation longs. In terms of the shorts, I wouldn't mind them. In terms of the daily time frame, it doesn't look tremendously against shorts. I mean, we have that daily 50 MA there supported by a daily order block. So I wouldn't really be looking to take immediate shorts, in contrast to pretty aggressive long positions. The reasons why is because we are currently bullish on those intraday perspectives, and then of course the bias slightly flips in terms of the targets as a result of not then trading with that 4-hour 50 MA. I'm going to have to use that as a target. So how I'm going to look to approach this is, as I expect price to come up into that daily 50 MA, I don't believe it's going to reject it instantly, particularly because we can see the imbalance left above it, right? So it's more than likely that price, we have the confluence in the strategy that price is going to want to reject it for the day. So looking at the daily time frame, we've got 14 hours and 16 minutes left for the current daily candle to want to push up and then reject it for the day. Nevertheless, we need to see some confirmation, because that's a hell of a lot of time for a candle to reject that 50 EMA. What could more than likely happen, and what is happening of late, is prices pushing up into those areas, even, for example, breaking and closing above the 15-minute order block that I'd like to use. But most importantly, it's them respecting the 4-hour order block, even if it trends above it on the lower time frame. What's important to them recognize is how is that 4-hour, how long is remaining of that 4-hour candle. So let me paint the scenario here for you on the 4-hour time frame. If this is the 4-hour candle above, what I'm expecting to see is this order block actually stay true to the fact that imbalance is going, or the liquidity is going to want to push price to the downside. So what will happen as price starts to trend above on the lower time frames, i.e. 15, 5 and 1 minute, this candle is bullish currently above that 4-hour 50 MA. However, what we expect to happen by the time this 4-hour candle is due to close, I'm expecting that 4-hour order block to do its job and leave me with a wick to the high. With that wick to the high, if I'm not already in the position as a result of price actually doing that, but this is what the wick to the high will actually create. That would create a break of structure. Then it will be for the next 4-hour candle, once it's opened, for us to use that wick imbalance. Let's see if price then reopens at these lows, comes right back into that wick imbalance for us to take the short back down. And then of course what that's going to look like is exactly that. You're going to have a break of significant 15-minute structure on that time frame, and then we'll have that break, and of course hopefully we'll have an order block for us ready to use up at the highs. And then once that next 4-hour candle opens, we'll pull back into that area for the short. So that's sort of the worst slash best case scenario, hoping that 4-hour order block remains and stays true. And then of course we're supported by the fact we've got that daily 50 made to push price down. So that's EG, both sides. I like it, don't mind it at all. I'll be happy to trade it. Gbp USD. So again, we are dependent on the movement of the DXY. That's why I quite like EG in terms of longs or shorts, because we're not truly governed by the DXY as a catalyst compared to EU, AU and GU, and even US dollar CAD for good examples. So I'd say EG at the moment would be the best of an average bunch, and we'll take a look at GU now. So GU took a short on this yesterday, closed it out by that 4-hour 50 MA, where we're quite clearly having a hold up. And then if you look on and compare the DXY, we're having exactly the same, and it makes absolute sense, right? Considering DXY as the catalyst, if the DXY isn't moving, I don't expect GU to move a tremendous amount either. So what am I looking for? Well, at the very least, we have the fact that this 4-hour order block is remaining. In terms of what I mean is, we are still yet to see a bullish candle close above that 4-hour order block. I understand it's only 4 hours old, but it's great to see. As well as that, if I bring your attention to the bottom right-hand chart on the daily time frame, that daily order block also is doing a tremendous job being or holding price to the downside by way of the daily 50 EMA. So what you will see, again, like we have on the DXY, we have price wanting to be pushed down by the daily 50 EMA, but we also see price wanting to be pushed up by the fact it is now broken above the 4-hour 50 EMA bottom left-hand chart, and it is now respecting it. Therefore, what are we going to expect? It is simply this. So the best case scenario, of course, is allow one line to do it on the 4-hour time frame. There's the line that is essentially structure point on the 15-minute, but most importantly, what is great to see, if you can have a bearish candle closure below that area of interest, it's much of the same that we've just spoken about on EG in terms of how we'd be looking to take that short position. Let's say this candle closes bearish below that 4-hour 50 EMA and it also breaks structure. That's a hell of a lot of confluence for us to now be excited to take a short position. Once this candle then closes bearish, we'll reopen here. We'll expect that next candle to want to push up into an area of imbalance, perhaps this 4-hour order block. And then with that said, what we'd have on the lower time frames, again, is we'd have lovely breaks of structure on the 15, 4-hour candle closes, next one opens, pulls back up into an area of imbalance. I'll be looking to short that down using the daily 50 EMA, and hopefully by that time we'll have the 4-hour 50 EMA on side as well. So that is lining up for quite a nice short. In line with the shorts using DXY as a confluence, we're going to expect DXY strength to want to come out of the market. We hope, based on all of those higher time frame biases, the daily 50 EMA pushing price to the upside, rejecting that weekly 50 EMA for the week as well. So taking a GU short absolutely aligns with the DXY confluence. So as you can see, I've got a hell of a lot of alerts around most recent price action. I want to see when price starts to break that 4-hour 50 EMA. Also want to see when price starts to pull back. And I'm not even highlighting 15-minute points of interest. The fact that we are respecting the 4-hour order block, the fact we're respecting the daily order block, as soon as I get confirmation, I'm then going to have a look at the potential for the setup. What that means is confirmation for me is entry criteria. If I see my entry criteria, I'll then play it backwards, as opposed to looking for the setup and then entry criteria. I'm going to look for my entry criteria and then double check that the setup aligns. I think based on the DXY, and recognizing that the DXY is bullish, also at the 4-hour 50 EMA, looking to lead towards the upside. It's a nice time in the market to have a look to see if we can get some bearish momentum coming out of GU. So I like that a lot. Hopefully the DXY proves for us and we'll get some momentum to the short. Nevertheless, if this area doesn't hold, then at the top, or rather at these highs, which is, where are we? Up here on the 4-hour time frame, to be honest. Yeah, that's sort of the next port of call for short. So as and when we get there, I'll put an alert just in case we do, and I'll save that for, well, it could be today, potentially tomorrow. We'll have a look. In terms of the longs, well, for us to take longs, and obviously the DXY has to, of course, short, well, go long for us for the GU to short. So the DXY moving towards the upside, but hopefully then we'll be in the short positions already in GU, and then looking for the long positions on the way back. However, for us, in order to take a long position, I need the DXY to pull short. So I've got this area up at the highs on the DXY where I see we could get some hold up. And then potentially, if we get the confirmation for shorts on the DXY, then of course I'll be looking for confirmation longs down at these lows on GU. So that's GU for us. Rattling through these. There was an abstract pair that I really like, so I don't waste all of your time. Yeah, Usdcad. I mean, if that starts to pull back, then it's absolute longs for me. That's quite clear to see on the weekly time frame. We're now pushing bullish above all of those weekly candles. However, what's nice to see is we're approaching that weekly 50 EMA. So as a result now, if you start to use all the confluences and place them together, mixed up in a jar, what we can see, the DXY, if it rolls bullish, we have a nice point of interest, potentially up at these highs, and no real areas higher, to be honest. So what that could mean is, if the US dollar CAD also pushes bullish as a result of the DXY showing signs of strength, we could come up into this daily order block supported short by that weekly 50 EMA. So around these areas on US dollar CAD, I'll be looking for a nice short. Again, I haven't haven't looked so far back in history to identify order blocks, etc., and imbalance. What I'm going to do is just use the DXY first and foremost to find that area of turnaround, and then once I find my entry criteria on the US dollar CAD potentially for short, then I will see how the setup looks in terms of trading opportunity. So I'm not going to fixate on too much previous history all the way back and start putting in order blocks waiting for price to come in. I'm just going to use the DXY first and foremost, as I'm focusing heavily on the DXY and analyzing it. I mean, to be honest, I'll probably take a trade short on the DXY if it gets there myself. So we'll have a look to see if US dollar CAD will align also. So I like that pair. In terms of the longs, well, it's pretty far-fetched. Where are we? US dollar CAD is far-fetched to expect the DXY to obviously drop that amount. But if it does, I mean, if the DXY is short, I don't think if the DXY shorts to here, that will bring us nicely in GU. But if the DXY shorts are there, I don't think we're equidistant for that drop here. I think we'll be somewhere potentially in and around these areas for continued long positions, potentially even via that 4-hour 50 MA would make a lot of sense. So I'll have an alert actually there to see what we have around that area. Again, not labeling 15-minute order blocks just yet. I'm just going to see how my entry criteria is once price comes towards a point of interest, which would be the 4-hour 50 MA for me on this particular pair, and as I'm saying, the DXY is what's the catalyst for me, so I've got that marked heavily. We skipped EU, I believe. Let's have a look at AU. Yeah, I like AU. There's a couple of things to speak about here on the weekly time frame. Ordinarily, I wouldn't really want to be taking long positions into all of those wick imbalances, right? Wick imbalances telling me that imbalance and liquidity is sat to the highs, pushing price to the downside. We get that information quite clearly by the fact that the 4-hour time frame is being respected beautifully on that 50 EMA as well, and we're trending pretty nicely down if we just use the most basic form. Got that lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and potentially price is now making that lower low. I hope it does. If price makes that lower low, I've got some areas of interest by way of wick imbalances, using that from the daily time frame. And with wick imbalances, we know liquidity is sat there, hence the wick. So I'll be looking for a long position on AUD USD as price starts to come down into these areas. Now, what we can say is the reason why I like that particular long is, let's have a look at the bottom right hand chart. That daily time frame is very important. Yesterday's daily candle closed bullish above that daily 50 MA, left us a wick to the low. So we're using the label of the wick, and we're going to see if there is a trading opportunity from that area. I've missed a trick just here. I think that, yeah, that is actually the wick. I'm using older wicks. Let me gather thoughts and explain that even better. So what that means is I'm expecting now this current daily candle also to respect that daily 50 MA and close toward the upside. So although the weekly looks a bit crappy, we are bullish, right? We can't hide the fact that AU is bullish. Well, it's not bullish. We're ranging, and that's very clear to see even on the weekly time frame. But nevertheless, on the intraday perspective, by the fact that we've had that bullish close above price, bullish daily closure above that daily 50 MA, that's giving me the incentive to take a long position on AU today. So what do I have, if I can get my words out? We had price come into this 15-minute order block. I'm going to zoom out all the way so you can see it and understand exactly what happened. So this 15-minute order block, identified, refined within full, price tapped it to perfection. Unfortunately, I didn't get an entry there, but what it has left behind, if I delete this now, it's left behind another order block that is very much so available, and we can see that a tremendous bullish engulfing candle that took out pretty much a day's worth of price action in one day. So exactly that, if price returns back to that area, not that I'm expecting continued bullish pressure to that extent, but I'm sure hoping at least I'm able to get break even. And why? Well, I understand that on the 4-hour time frame, price is very much so bearish, and we're trending beautifully down, making lower lows and lower highs and rejecting that 4-hour 50 EMA. So I have a very clear target, and I have very clear use of the daily 50 EMA to the upside. So I'm expecting to take a trade that will look something similar to that. I have to get out by the 4-hour 50 EMA, right, nice and sensible stop loss AU. So I've got a maximum of 20 pips. So what I'm going to have to do is wait for some confirmation before taking that trade, because this order book is a little bit too large for me to cover the lows. So I have to wait for price to come in, probably on the lower time frame, 5 minute or 1 minute, wait for that engulfing candle, entry criteria, and then I'm off to the races to hopefully clean up that trade for a long with a decent stop loss, and then hoping to pull the price out around there, to be quite honest. So AU, yeah, I really like AU. I'm going to have to wrap it up there, team. I've only got a 20-second countdown, so I hope that quick summary of the charts today, just approaching 8 o'clock now. Thank you very much for your time, support, and patience. I hope that gives you a helping hand throughout your trading day. All the very best. Speak to you soon, and you'll sure hear from me soon. Take care. Ciao.